Hey guys, Ben here, back at you this week with BSL Nutrition Podcast, and this week I was joined by Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, who is a good friend, a local resident of Scottsdale, and we had the privilege of catching up about his business, FitFatherProject.com. In the interview, we cover why nutrition is so important for a weight loss plan. We talk about the importance of exercise. We talk a lot about intermittent fasting, ketogenic diets, bulletproof coffee. We talk about the importance of community, and then we also talk about how Dr. Balduzzi has integrated his naturopathic medical degree into his coaching business and what steps people should start to take, how we dig a little bit deeper when that kind of weight loss plateaus and we know that it's not necessarily an exercise or a nutrition, not necessarily nutrition or exercise at play that's stagnating the fat loss. And then just for a little background, Dr. Anthony Balduzzi is a men's health, weight loss, and muscle building expert working exclusively for busy fathers over 40. After watching his own dad lose his health and pass away at the young age of 42, Dr. Anthony founded the Fit Father Project to help other busy fathers get and stay permanently healthy for their families. Dr. Anthony holds dual degrees in Nutrition and Neuroscience from the University of Pennsylvania, a doctorate in Naturopathic Medicine, and is also a national champion bodybuilder. If that's not all, he's most proud of the fact that he's helped over 10,000 fathers lose over 75,000 pounds of fat with his work at the Fit Father Project. I hope you guys enjoy this interview. It was really a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to talk to him, and I'll see you over there. Dr. Anthony, how you doing, brother?
I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for your time. It's really good to connect. It's crazy that we both live in Scottsdale and yet we haven't seen each other in a couple of years. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to finally connect with you again. If it meant getting you on the podcast, then so be it. So what's been happening in your world?
So I have been running the Fit Father Project website. And so we are leaders in fitness for busy guys in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. I just finished up my medical degree, so I'm officially a naturopathic physician as well. So I'm really just enjoying the art of blending, medicine and all the stuff I've been studying for the past, really 20 years in school to the online space, and I can teach people in a bigger way. So just loving running the Fit Father Project, writing, speaking, teaching, and getting to hang out with great guys like you and shooting the shit.
Yeah, I'm really continually impressed with the type of content that you're pumping out over at the Fit Father Project for, content for busy guys, meal plans, nutritional guides, how to really marry. And this is stuff that I constantly preaching about, how to create the habits around that lifestyle that guys, men and women need to implement to be successful long-term. And that's the biggest thing. Anthony, what are you seeing on a day-to-day basis that your guys are coming to you? Like, what are the biggest struggles that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis that you're constantly, preaching towards?
Yeah, amazing question. That can speak to all populations, not just guys over 40. The first thing would be, the busyness of people's schedules. That there's the I have no time excuse. And the biggest thing is that people feel like they don't have the time to exercise. And all my clients come saying, I don't have the time in my schedule to exercise. And the first thing we teach them is really to understand the hierarchy, at least in our framework of how we teach the Fit Father Project, of what's really most important if you're someone looking to get healthy. And we teach them the fundamentals of the fact that, 80% of the battle in terms of body recomp is driven by nutrition. Yep. So even if you don't have time to exercise, our response sometimes shocks people. That's okay. We'll teach you how to do time-efficient exercise, but first we're going to clean up your eating. We're going to clean up your sleep, and we're going to develop, some mindset stuff to lay the framework to make these changes actually sustainable long-term. Which I know you and I share a passion for, change psychology and how that meets the road of like all the hardline fitness stuff. So yeah, I guess the biggest excuse and really just objection to getting healthy that we help guys overcome all the time is, I'm just too busy, and that nutrition is just too complicated. I think that we've created an industry as health professionals to make eating almost tribal and very complicated. Like, on one end you have, like raw vegans. On the other end you have, high meat paleos. And then there's like 80-10-10 guys and intermittent fasting. And people are so damn confused, because people are preaching, just, never eat carbs, eat high fats. And then you see people are really healthy eating, high carb, low fat diets. And so really what we help guys do is, cut a lot of the dogma out of healthy eating. Be like, all diets that work for a core subset of principles that we can absolutely talk about. And we help them develop a plan that's actually sustainable long-term. That's, as least restrictive as possible and enjoyable. Because when I started my training career, I came from the competitive bodybuilding world. And that is like the most rigid world possible in terms of nutrition. Like I was, I didn't know much better back at the time, but I was, eating, every 2 hours, only a subset of like 5 different foods, like brown rice, chicken,
Sure.
Steamed broccoli. And I would develop these kind of plans for my clients. And they would get great results for about 2 weeks, and then they'd all fall off track. Right. And so what I've learned now is that any day I will take a B+ plan that has the right amount of leeway, and it's actually going to be the A+ plan that someone can stay compliant with. And the only change that I care about is the change that sticks. And the only plan that I care about is the one that someone can stick to long term. Like real people with real jobs and families and kids, and we're running businesses like yourself, and you teach this stuff for a living, so and you develop products to help people. Yeah, it has to be sustainable. That sustainability pillar needs to be at the core of all good coaching, and that's something I think that's overlooked.
So when someone comes to you, they come to your program and they say, Anthony, I'm overwhelmed. I have, I'm working all the time. I'm stressed out. I have my family. I have my kids. I don't have time to cook. How can I possibly add something to my plate? No pun intended. Right now, like I can't even think about exercise. I can't think about restricting my diet. So give me an example of what's like a common first step that you'll take with a man or woman, to plug into their nutrition, because nutrition is one of the most important things. So give me an example of that. Totally.
Yeah. Because nutrition is the highest lever thing. That's totally where we start as a really big leverage point to start to make some change in someone's life. Now, here's one of the crux of our approaches is we believe in schedule-based eating. So the plan that works for a guy that has this kind of job is going to be different than the optimal plan for someone who has this kind of job. So what we've done is, it's our goal at the Fit Father Project to teach people at scale. So obviously the best plan you could have, if you sat down and wrote me a custom plan, you told me, okay, this is my schedule, whatever, and these are the timings and the foods. But what we've done is in our Fit Father meal plan, we've created 3 different schedules that we feel like most guys' lives fit in. We have like the on-the-go plan where they need like a super quick turnkey shake for breakfast. They need options they can buy out on the go for lunch.
Great.
You need quick dinners that take like 10 minutes to prep. So we have that. Then we have the guys who work at home or have families where they can do a little more meal prep. We have the at-home plan that is a little more of like an intermittent fasting style plan where, they're at home so they can shift their first meal back to 10:30.
Okay.
Some easy cooking recipes there, some easy prep at-home lunches. That all takes under 10 minutes of cooking. But point being is we give these guys all these options and we're like, hey, which one fits you? You self-select. So from a coaching standpoint, if you're doing one-on-one work, it's great if you can really get inside someone's life and really develop them the custom glove solution. But if you're teaching at scale, it's super important to give people an array of options that, they can kind of pick what's going to fit their schedule best. And that's why guys are so successful with our approach, because it ends up being custom, although it's a program they just found online. And they get to pick the schedule that's going to work best for them. We do teach the fundamentals of all the good stuff that everyone talks about, like how to meal prep on Sunday in 2 hours to remove those decision points throughout the week. And we teach them that, hey, you can lose weight by buying food out, food in the real world at like restaurants, like, we even allow the guys to eat at places like, Subway and Chipotle and McDonald's in our meal plan, the Fit Father Project. Yeah. We give them options at all of these places. And so we want to make our plans as inclusive as possible that fit the flexibility of a busy modern day man's life, and they need the options. So I guess schedule-based meal plans, and with teaching them the long-term game of meal prep when they can do that is huge. And also another thing we've learned is that, people don't get healthy in isolation. Families get healthy. So we're the Fit Father Project, so we really work on the crux of like being like, okay, we have a dad who wants to get rid of his beer belly, lose 30 pounds, get off his cholesterol meds. But we're also serving a wife and kids by proxy, and we create this kind of ecosystem thinking where everyone gets healthy together, and there's like a little bit of an accountability bubble within the family. So I could rant on that rabbit hole, or I'll just pause. And
no, that's great. That's great. I appreciate the lead by example approach, because that's one of the most important things that we can do is like, yeah, we all have our egos and we want to support that and we want to look good in our, in our swimsuit and summer coming up and all that stuff. But the most important thing we can do is lead by example and teach our children, how to eat healthy foods in moderation and not feel like they need to live this restrictive lifestyle. And so I certainly can appreciate including those more fast food options into the plan. So, and I especially like the idea of giving people choices too, because that's imperative. We have to be able to decide what we want to do. And if someone says you have to do this, what do you do? All of a sudden you go into defense mode. So that's great. You had mentioned intermittent fasting, and something personally that I've been experimenting with for the last few months, and I'm someone enamored by and very interested in and finding it's very beneficial to me. So tell me from a medical standpoint, a coach and a medical standpoint, what are we seeing as the benefits of intermittent fasting, and how does it work?
Yeah, amazing question. I love intermittent fasting. And it's one of those things, it's another tool in the toolbox. And when we get into something that's kind of like very in vogue right now, like IF, it's important to also understand that we want to try to leave as much dogma out the door as possible. Definitely. Intermittent fasting is not the only way that people should be eating to stay healthy. It just so happens to have a lot of metabolic and schedule-based benefits that I want to cover quickly. So for those who don't know intermittent fasting itself, it's basically a style of eating where you compress your eating window into a fewer number of meals, and you're fasting for a larger period of the day. So the classic setups that a lot of people are using are the 16-8 setup, which is often called lean gains, where for 16 hours a day you stay fasted, and for 8 hours you compress your meals into that 8-hour window. So it can look as simple as having meal number 1 at 11:30 to break your fast, meal number 2 at like a late lunch, like 3:30, and then meal number 3 at like 6:30 or 7:30, and then you're done for the day. So kind of like pushing that first meal back and not eating after 7:30 p.m. Now, there's a couple cool things that happen. First off is what we do know is when it comes to weight loss, like despite what people want to pitch out, especially in the high fat community, calories do matter. Calories and macros are so important. And if you compress your eating window with intermittent fasting, it's going to be a lot easier to eat a wider breadth of foods while still staying in your calorie targets. Because you have a big meal, if you have a big first meal and you have a lot of food, you're not going to be hungry for a number of hours, 4 or 5 hours afterwards. And in that 8-hour window, you can only do so much damage. I mean, we still recommend the right amount of foods, but there's a benefit to sticking to your calories. And most people on an IF framework, like a 16-8, for example, maintain a calorie deficit a lot easier if they're trying to lose weight. And especially if you're having protein and some good healthy fats every meal, you're going to stay full. So lower hunger. But the benefits don't stop there. It's not just calorie control. There are a ton of metabolic changes that happen during IF. The first one that's extremely interesting from an anti-aging and fat loss perspective is the massive surge in growth hormone that can happen during a fast. I mean, some studies show that past around a 16-hour, more to the 24-hour point, you can have like a 1,600% increase in growth hormone. Wow. Which is amazing because growth hormone is lipolytic. It helps break down fat. It preserves your muscle. It regenerates cells and organs. And why does this happen? Well, my best understanding of this is the fact that our human bodies were designed to deal with the pressures and stresses of environment where food was often scarce for our ancestors. And so our bodies need to figure out ways, like when we didn't have constant food access and there wasn't a McDonald's down the street, like how could we stay healthy and regenerative and do some cool things during the fasting period. So that's what our bodies do, a lot of amazing things. One of the other huge benefits is a process called autophagy that happens inside cells, where cells digest all the debris and junk that gets accumulated, and our brains actually build new neurons. So all this stuff happens during fasting, and it's not just a weight loss and fat loss tool. I personally recommend that almost every healthy human on the planet who has constant food access do at least some kind of fasting in their weekly routine. 16-8, that lean gain setup we just mentioned, could be a really good long-term option. Some people like that. Wake up, rehydrate, have some black coffee, push that first meal back. But another great way is a 24-hour fast once a week.
Okay.
Dinner to dinner. Have dinner tonight, green tea and water until dinner tomorrow. That gives you a lot of the same benefits and even more because you're even more in that fasted state. And that's something I personally do once a week, every week for the rest of my life, and it's just incredibly, incredibly effective and healthy for so many reasons.
I tend to experiment with both, actually. And so what I noticed was starting with the 16-8, and even just starting a couple days a week. So I have a couple really long days of the week that I'm out of the house at like 5 a.m. And I don't get home again until, 7 p.m. And so I'll kind of do that whole morning. At least that's the way I started, was that whole morning as a continued fast from the night before. So dinner, and then I would eat at 12 or 1 or 2 the following day, which seemed to work really well. And then as I started to do it more and more, I noticed that, that establishing hunger and that learned hunger, it's the learned response. And so you get more and more comfortable being hungry. You stop freaking out, thinking, oh my God, I have to eat. And as you get more comfortable with that, you can start to push it longer and longer, to the degree that for me now I do a Sunday night to Monday night occasion of a 24-hour. And then if that's not going to happen, then I'll do most days of a 16-8. But I do love breakfast. And so that's something that definitely on the weekends, is kind of family time. I love to cook breakfast for the family. And then the days when I'm home with the kids and stuff like that. So I think that's
much wisdom in what you just said, because it's behavioral based and schedule based for you. On your weekends, when you love breakfast, so you enjoy breakfast on the weekends. And when you have your busy days, you fast. Right. So it's a really good syncing schedule tool as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. It's a good nugget for everyone listening, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the things. You have to figure out what works best for you. Dr. Anthony says, I need to do 16-8 every day. But dude, if you want to have breakfast with your family, you can do it. It's going to be okay. And then you can figure out how to, for lack of a better term, hack your program, in other ways. And then second, what I like best about it is, for most people, is the caloric restriction standpoint, is people have to understand. And it's like we were just saying, nutrition is the most important component of a weight loss program, because our calories matter. And so it's okay to eat at McDonald's. It's okay to eat at Subway. That's cool, man. But how are you managing those calories from a day-to-day basis? And so if you can basically skip one whole meal and or snacks that most people get in trouble with, breakfast being one of the most trouble-inducing meals, be it oatmeal or cereal or bagels or all of these carbohydrate-dense, calorie-dense foods, then that's a great tool for people to have. So I appreciate you sharing on that, which, mentioning breakfast, is, Dr. Anthony, I thought that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. So what gives? Where are we now with the research? Like, what's happening here?
Well, I think the first thing is General Mills did a great job marketing to like 3 generations of humans. Yeah. I actually just wrote an email for the Fit Father Project. I brought up one of those old retro Wheaties boxes, where Wheaties used to have those breakfast of champions was the slogan.
Yeah, I saw the email. Absolutely.
Yeah, make sure we get enough corn and wheat first thing in the morning, or we're not going to function well. So, it's just something that we've kind of been brought up. And I think that I want to hit on a couple things. One thing you said is brilliant, is that hunger is a learned pattern. Like when we were born, we didn't, 3 square meals a day is not something that, is necessarily natural. It's just the pattern that we've kind of ingrained culturally. And our brains learn that to expect food at certain times based on our circadian rhythm. And it's a whole new field of like biocircadian biology and all this stuff. It's like a new frontier, but also understanding that when you eat 6 times a day, your brain learns how to get hungry 6 times per day. So there's a lot of benefit to having a small eating frequency for overall greater hunger control. But first thing in the morning, there are so many unique hormonal changes that happen inside our bodies that are very beneficial to us. Like cortisol is one of these hormones that gets a massively bad rap. But it's the hormone that really gets us out of bed in the morning. Cortisol spikes naturally every morning, and it helps get you out of bed. And what cortisol also does is it mobilizes fat. Cortisol breaks down fat from cells and gets us energized, and it helps convert noradrenaline to adrenaline and get us like pumping in the morning. What we don't want is chronically high cortisol levels from all the stress. But the important thing in me bringing cortisol up is that if we have a high sugar breakfast first thing in the morning, not only do we set our blood sugar on a roller coaster for the rest of the day that's going to lead to more hunger, but that completely blocks the natural rhythm of this gentle rise and fall of cortisol that helps entrain our energy patterns. So, skipping breakfast has a lot of benefits from a hormonal standpoint. And I think we've also had a lot of food marketing as we started to do more commercial farming and agriculture on wheat and corn and soy. These things got really big industry that breakfast cereals became like the go-to, and breakfast carbs became the go-to. Whereas if you're going to have breakfast, what we recommend here at the Fit Father Project is, a lower carb, higher healthy fat, higher protein breakfast to help keep that blood sugar extremely stable. Let those natural hormones ride that natural morning wave. Keep those carbs on the lower end. Carbs are actually better served, in that post-workout period.
Right.
Or even later at night, you can include some good carbs with dinner. You get a good serotonin release, and your energy is so much more stable. So we like the higher fat, higher protein, lower carb breakfast, and there's a lot of benefits from a endocrinological standpoint as well, where keeping the carbs lower has a lot of benefit on neurotransmitters, and you don't feel as tired from these massive dumps of serotonin and other chemicals after you eat carbs.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate your insight on that. And personally, and I know for a lot of, I guess it depends, what time of day you work out or exercise, but for a lot of people that meet, higher protein, higher fat breakfast tends to be more dopamine inducing, which is great earlier on in the day, especially if you train earlier and kind of give you more neural drive for your training, which for me personally works very well if I'm actually eating, in the morning and then introducing more carbs at night as a means of introducing serotonin and helping just unwind and calm down and stuff like that. So I don't want to talk much more about the breakfast component, but I do want to get your input on the bulletproof concept and how it pertains to intermittent fasting, because it seems like the lines are getting blurred between what legitimately is fasting and is it still fasting if I'm including 400 calories of coconut oil and butter and MCT oil in my coffee in the morning. What's your thought on that?
Totally. I definitely have strong opinions on that. I want to give Bulletproof and the concept a lot of props, because they've really helped wage a good fight against fat phobia. Yeah. I mean, they've done a lot of good for the industry in that sense. Sure. But I think it's one of the silliest things in the world to include 400 calories of fat in your damn morning coffee. Like, when we know that calories and macros matter tremendously, and for those that aren't directly familiar, bulletproof coffee, the idea of adding, grass-fed butter or coconut oil or MCT oil into coffee to get these good short chain and medium chain fatty acids, because these fats are broken down a little differently in the body. They're healing for the gut. They can help produce ketones, which, ketosis is, ketogenic diets are now coming back into full circle and in vogue now because of Tim Ferriss wrote a book including it, and Bulletproof talks about it as well. So my take is that a fast, for the purposes of doing intermittent fasting, especially on like a 16/8, let's keep you in a fasted state. Our bodies know how to produce ketones on our own. And I just went to a medical conference, endocrinology, and they were talking about how the best way for humans to live, this was a quote from one of the speakers, is we're built to do intermittent ketosis, not continuous ketosis. So it's a real benefit to like an IF style diet, because it gives you your body's going to be making ketones while you're fasting. And then it's not while you're going to be, eating carbohydrate and stuff like that. But my point is, like, I think people need to scale back on the amount of butter and fat they're throwing in their coffee. Like, if you want to do that and that's your thing, like, it's not a true fast. A tablespoon of MCT oil would be like what I would maybe recommend. And, that's 14 grams of fat, That's okay. It's not going to break the bank. And if you train early in the morning, it can take the edge off that morning caffeine, and that can be an okay thing. But for me personally, and the guys that coach the Fit Father Project, we do pure fasting. So non-caloric fasting, we still include the good medium chain triglycerides and those short chain triglycerides from the coconut oils and grass-fed butter in some of our meals. Yeah. These fats are important, but it's not a real fast, in my opinion, if you're introducing stuff too. And a lot of the benefits that happen from fasting happen because our cells sense that we don't have enough energy. And there's a constant balance between AMP kinase and mTOR and all these cellular signals on how much energy we have. If we're providing energy to these cells, we're not getting the full benefit of a fast, in my opinion, in my experience. And it's not, you do not need that tablespoon in your coffee, but if you want to go for it, just, let's not put 3 tablespoons, 45 grams of fat in a coffee, please.
Definitely. That's good. That's good. And I'm, for the record, I'm a fan, which I kind of hate to say it, but I'm definitely a fan of occasional use of the bulletproof coffee. I do feel pretty good when I'm utilizing it, but people got to understand, man, it's just because fat's healthy now, it doesn't mean it's calorie free, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
They're definitely getting in trouble with it, and there's kind of gray area between now ketogenic dieting and fasting, and including the two, and intermittent fasting within it. And so I think there's a lot of confusion that's happening.
I want to mention one thing. I was just on my Facebook news feed the other day, and I saw one of my friends, who I will not name, as to call someone out hard here, but they posted, people like to post pictures of their food, and this guy had a ribeye steak with some broccoli and about like 4 slices of butter about this thick. And the headline of his thing was like abs are on the way, like, let's go, getting rip time. And I'm just like, dude, like, if you knew that there are literally about like 85 grams of fat in that meal, like, woo, we got to scale this dogma back a little bit.
Yeah. And it's all about teaching people, creating more awareness within people. And that's, I'm sure, why you're teaching your tribe how to understand the calories that they're taking in, why macronutrients are important. Like, it's important to understand how much protein and starchy carbs and healthy fats and veggies that you're taking in throughout the day, so that when you're busy and you're on the go, then you know how to build your plate from meal to meal, and understanding like, hey man, I know I need a palm of protein, or a cupped hand of carbs, or a fist-sized portion, of veggies, and why to include healthy fats. And that way we can make those informed decisions from meal to meal, whether we're in the airport, or we're traveling somewhere, or we're just at home, and kind of not worrying about plugging stuff into MyFitnessPal because it's too stressful to do that. It's just not realistic for people to do. And unless people have an understanding of how to build those plates from meal to meal, you can't manage your calories effectively.
Totally. I agree with everything you just said.
So we know the extreme importance of our nutrition, of our caloric intake from day to day. We know the importance of exercise. And I like how you I believe you mentioned that sometimes guys are just starting to exercise 3 times a week. And so we also know the value of community and social support in weight loss. How have you worked to create a level of community within your business, and what does that look like, and how are people responding to it?
Yeah, well, a couple things. I think an interesting thing about the Fit Father Project itself is that we don't just sell fitness, like, we sell the concept of fatherhood. So people that come to us and would buy or enroll in any of our programs versus something like, say, P90X, are people that identify on a heart level with their identity as a father. And that intrinsically creates more community spark right off the get-go, because this is not about abs. We'll get those, but this is about, what it means to be a fit father and be around for a family. So when you get a group of people that have the same core beliefs off the front end, it makes the building of the community so much easier. And one unique thing we do in our program is we have guys go through a process of developing a 30-day mission statement for their change, and go through an exercise of getting very clear on the costs of their current lifestyle and the costs of starting our program, and you doing some emotional weighing on how the rubber's going to hit the road. And we share these mission statements with other guys, and there's a big sense of community when everyone's walking the same journey together. We have a private Facebook group for our program members, and we share a Fit Father of the Week success story every week on our Fit Father Sunday Post newsletter. So guys are also seeing other men succeed. And it's really cool where we're at the point now where the community kind of runs itself, like our private Facebook group, like they run shit. We come in occasionally and check in on guys, but they really feel like they're a brotherhood. And what I've noticed is that having a brand that I like to say is like psychographically niched is one of the best things that we ever did. It's not just about the age, and we help women over 40 or men over 40. It's this idea, this identity. So like health for fathers, health for entrepreneurs, things that people really identify with is important.
Yeah, I mean, that's me. And I can absolutely resonate with that message. And what I also can appreciate is giving men the platform to be able to share, because it's not something that we're super comfortable doing. And so when you have that type of community where it's like, dude, it's okay to, talk about what you're struggling with, because the chances are very good that there's nowhere else in their life or community or social support system that they truly, genuinely feel comfortable doing so. So I imagine that's a very valuable outlet. And, something that we know, like I said, that the community, someone's community is so important in long-term, effective, sustainable way.
Yeah. So we have two communities we're building. Each dad, we're working with him as a leader to build his own family community and his sphere of influence within his coworkers, those that are seeing him change. So there's like the micro community. We're creating all these little blips with every guy we touch. There's these micro communities cropping up all over the world. And then we have the macro community. So it's one of the reasons why so many of our guys become like ambassadors and evangelists for the brand, because they feel like this is something new and different. It's not the same rehashed, fitness stuff. Like not too many people are putting bumper stickers of their personal trainer's name on their car, and but they would do something if it's more identity based, like the Fit Father Project.
Yeah, it's great. So I want to ask you one more deeper question about the medical aspect, and then I'm going to let you go. But what kind of things are you implementing, and how do you approach situations where, I guess I'll ask two questions. One is, how are you marrying your medical degree with the coaching process? And even if you are, and then why don't we start there, and then I'll marry that into the second question.
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, I want, for those that are listening, is I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine. So an NMD. We're different than MDs. We're different than DOs. Which is, it's a very complicated medical landscape. There's 3 different kinds of doctors that you can be on the medical prescribing front. But we are naturopaths are a type of medicine that is rooted on a couple core philosophies. One being, we'll always treat the cause of the problem. And for a lot of people out there, a lot of the causes of these lifestyle epidemics we have, obesity, heart disease, diabetes, prediabetes, are eating, exercise, sleep, and mindset. So intrinsically, the philosophy of the medicine comes through with the kind of work we're doing out in the world. And also, we have just a profound faith in the body's own ability to heal and regenerate itself naturally, without the use of prescription medications, which can be very useful in certain contexts, and not against those, but I'm in the business of getting people off medications, and that's what we do as well. So my philosophy comes through in terms of the work, but there's a lot of things that we're implementing and in the process of, like using advanced lab testing to inform personalized medicine and personalized programs. Like with the field of like nutrigenomics, we're learning how important like the individual gene expression of any given person might dictate what kind of plan they should be following. So we're on the frontier of integrating more of this really cool personalized medicine stuff in. But I say, to directly answer that question, I think it's just honoring the core philosophy that at the core of health is good eating and good nutrition and living in accordance with the laws of nature. And we'd help guys do that in a way that's like actually simple, enjoyable, and sustainable.
Yeah, that's great. And so that takes us perfectly into my next question, which is more and more now. And we know like 95% of the time for people that are interested in weight loss, it comes down to, sleeping, energy in, energy out, right? How are they managing their calories, things like that. But there is a legitimate subset of that people that are really experiencing issues losing weight.
Yeah.
And so from the medical standpoint, what is the process that you would undergo to help identify what's at the root cause of that? Is saying, let's take your typical guy, like they've been following the nutrition plan. They're on what's suggested to be a caloric deficit. They're busting their butt in the gym. Then what are the things that you're looking at?
Yeah, amazing question. So I think the first point that I want to just echo is for the vast majority of people, there's tweaks that can be made to the plan that will actually get the weight loss moving, get you out of the plateau. However, there are some people that are legitimately following the right steps and not seeing results. So naturopathic philosophy, we got to find the root cause. What's going on that's preventing this? And I'll spitball a couple main things that I would start to initially do some Sherlock Holmes on. And the first thing would be, do we have some degree of insulin resistance? So we'd be running lab work on fasting insulin. Are they a diabetic, pre-diabetic? When insulin's constantly high, it's very hard to lose weight. We'd look at their thyroid function, run a basic thyroid panel. Is the thyroid functioning, which is like a key endocrinology, metric that we need to track to see how well your metabolism is churning. We can look at leptin resistance to see, there's a very small genetic subset of the population that has deficiencies in leptin receptors, and as well as just like a lot of fat that's made them leptin resistant, which can be a problem. And for guys, low testosterone, another problem that can make it very difficult to lose weight. So we will use investigative lab work to try to identify what the subset of issues are. And most of the time it'll be one of those. We'll look at, adrenal health, thyroid, insulin, testosterone, and then we'll work on addressing those things in the most natural, least invasive way possible. Support those biochemical pathways through good nutrition, right, through recovery, rest, sleep, and sometimes medications, are needed to help thyroid or testosterone. But doing some investigative lab work so that those people out there who are really struggling and stuck at a plateau know that it's not your fault. Like there's something that we can actually work on fixing. And if you're at that point out there listening, or someone, friends and family that is, then getting a good medical professional who can help you with that advanced work is going to be fantastic for starting to uncover those problems.
Cool. That's great. And I'm thinking of one gentleman in particular who is in a similar situation, and he is a physician and who does shift work. So he works, I think he's like 12 days on, a few days off, and then 12 days on again, night shifts, and can't seem to understand why the weight's not budging. And although he's doing everything right in the kitchen and in the gym and nutritionally supporting himself, and some of the hormone levels actually look okay, but he's got to understand that those circadian rhythms and that the power of sleep for fat loss hormones is so important. It
so is. And we talk about one of our most famous articles on the Fit Follower Project sites, we call Weight Loss for Men Over 40. And we have like a 5-step pyramid that we walk guys through. And before we even talk about eating or exercise, the first thing we do is sleep and mindset. Mm-hmm. It's really, it's very, like shift workers, we help a lot of those. It's tough. If you're not sleeping in the regular schedule with the sun, your body's pretty resistant to want to let go of the weight. And another thing that we don't want to go down this rabbit hole necessarily, but environmental toxins and other stuff like that is worth talking about as well. There are a lot of reasons why there's endocrine disruptors out in our environment that can cause hormones to get out of whack, and also our body uses fat cells to store toxins. Fat cells don't just store energy; they can be little silos, so we can keep things out of the bloodstream in these fat cells. And oftentimes our body can be resistant to releasing things. Or when we do start to lose weight, we can feel like crap as our body's releasing all sorts of stuff. So that's a whole discussion on environmental medicine that is relevant to some people for sure, with chemical exposures, heavy metals, etc. But that's another thing to add to that repertoire.
Yeah. But it's perfect though. People got to understand how multifaceted approach it is to long-term healthy weight loss, sustainable weight loss. And it's not always, the majority of the time it is about what you're putting in your mouth and your lifestyle. It's also, you got to understand what your body's doing to the environment, and how you're supporting it and how you're managing stress and all of the stuff that we've talked about. I've interviewed a bunch of functional medicine practitioners. Nice. And so I think everyone has a very good understanding. With that said, Dr. Anthony, listen, man, where can everyone find out more about you?
Yeah, if anyone's interested in learning more about my philosophy and the Fit Father Project programs, fitfatherproject.com, and that's just go start looking around the site. We have tons of incredible meal plans, workouts, and you got to throw links to them there. You can find it on the site. It's really awesome.
I'll have all the links, all the links in the notes below. No problem.
Yeah. So we'll do a link to I'd like to direct people to a free meal plan and free workout. That's like where we like to really get people into like the core philosophy of how we approach things. So they're welcome to check that out.
That's awesome. For all you ladies and men that are listening, make sure to head over to fitfatherproject.com and check out what Dr. Anthony is doing. Like I said, he has some amazing resources. Ladies specifically, if you think this is something that your man is going to resonate with as much as it resonates with me as a husband, as a father, as someone who wants to set a great example for my family and be in the best possible shape that I can. And look, this is me as a trainer, as a nutritionist, promoting Dr. Anthony's work, because he really is doing remarkable stuff. So point your husband in the right direction. I guarantee if they're ready to flip the switch, this is going to be the right resource for them. And then for all you trainers listening, head over, check out Dr. Anthony's work. It may be something, I know there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of trainers that are running gyms that have completely let themselves go. This could be a good resource for you. And then also from a business standpoint, you guys need to go see what Dr. Anthony's doing. He's really done a remarkable job over the last, 12 years?
Yeah, I mean, the site has really been, I started building out throughout medical school, but, it's been an aggregation of 10 years of work for sure.
Yeah, and this dude is, Ivy League educated. He just finished his naturopathic medical degree and has been able to build this, this thriving business all throughout doing all of that, to say nothing of some of the personal limitations, but you guys will find out some of that and once you start digging in. So Dr. Anthony, thanks a lot, man. It has been a pleasure spending time with you, catching up. We still need to hit the gym and actually bro out a little bit.
That sounds amazing. Thanks for having me, Ben.
All right, buddy. Take care. Bye.
Bye.